Welcome to On the Bubble Podcast, episode 121. I'm your host, Wasa J. Wade, and with me is my co-host, Yuki Lee Bender. Today, we're going to be doing our pre-release primer for the Super Slam set. But before we do that, anything you want to talk about before we start with this show?
Yeah, I'll just say world premiere happened in Montreal a few days ago. As of recording, we're recording on Wednesday. Um, so, yeah, I was not able to go to that event. Unfortunately, I know that you were, and so this episode, Jay will kind of be sharing a lot of his experience with the format since I didn't actually get a chance to play it this time. I had my cousin's wedding to go to, which was nice. Got to see a lot of family, and I really enjoyed being there and being part of that. But I was disappointed to miss the world premiere in Montreal. I guess outside of the wedding, I've been working a bunch on CC, which is kind of nice. Often, some of my friends are at home working on CC while I'm playing Limited, and I'm trying to keep up with what they're doing. And I'm like, oh, people have done so much work on CC, and this time I'm kind of on the other end. I'm the one getting to work on CC, which has been fun in its own way. So I've still been playing lots of Flesh and Blood, just not Super Slam Limited, more so Super Slam CC stuff.
Is there any spicy decks that you've been working on recently for Super Slam?
Yeah, so I've been putting a little bit of time into Lyath. You can definitely expect some content from me on Lyath coming up. But also, I've been spending time on KO, Armed and Dangerous, the OG KO from Heavy Hitters, the one that makes Might tokens. He got a whole bunch of support from this set. The deck has like so many good brute. I was gonna say Majestics, but honestly, like there's good rares in there. He gets a whole bunch of more disruption, way better blue base, more access to go again. Gloves upgrade after Apex Bonebreaker was already a pretty crazy gloves. So yeah, that KO deck list has been really impressive, and that's actually up available on Patreon right now. I just released it last night. So full deck list with sideboard guide and matchup notes is available on Patreon. And since it is super early, I'm sure that the deck list is imperfect, but I'll be releasing an update kind of, I don't know, the week before ProQuest or so, after I have a little more time to refine and polish everything. But I think that this deck list there's something there. I think KO is a strong meta player, and this is definitely a good starting point. If anybody's, looking for a PQ deck and wants to start getting reps now, I think the deck is in more than a good enough spot. It's just probably, cleaning up the sideboard, working on a couple of the game plans a little bit, sort of thing. A little refinement.
That's fair. Also, like, we don't really know what the meta's going to look like yet, so...
Yeah, it's a little hard to know what to tech for, and in the case of the new heroes, like, how are they going to be built? How relevant are they, etc. So yeah, it's an early deck list. It will shift a little bit, but there will be a free update to that as well. So yeah, keep your eyes out for the KO update as well as how to play guide that will be coming up. But yeah, that's more or less what I've been up to. I know that you were in Montreal. Before we talk about the format, how was your trip?
My trip was pretty good, actually. So Montreal has a casino called Playground, and I didn't know that they had free food there as long as you're playing poker. I think I spent close to 30 hours playing poker in Montreal. Yeah, so that's basically all I was doing. I was either at Playground playing poker, or I was at the convention hall playing Flesh and Blood. And yeah, I think I spent like 4 to 5 hours in my hotel room every day just sleeping, and then wake up, go to the convention center, go to Playground, eat food, come back, pass out for a couple hours, and then go back to the convention hall. So I actually enjoy that kind of schedule. So it was really fun for me.
I'm glad you had a good time. I was going to ask if you managed to sleep at all with so much Flesh and Blood and poker as well, but sounds like you got a little bit of sleep in there. Enough sleep for Jay, at least.
Yes, most definitely. Like either way, like at these trips, I usually am awake until like 3-4 a.m. anyways. So nothing really changed. It's just that I actually got more reasonable food than what I usually get. So I think it's just an upgrade for me.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I'm glad to hear that you had a good trip. So you played the world premiere. What was it, like 3 sealed events on day 1, and then the calling on the Saturday?
Yeah, so I got to play the 3 sealeds on day 1 or day 0, however you want to call it. I played the calling main event. I did it day 2, so I got to play the battle hardened as well, and I lost that as well. So It didn't do that much winning in Flesh and Blood this weekend. I think I'll talk about how the format feels as well, but yeah, I think this is the most amount of games I've lost, or the least amount of games I won in Flesh and Blood at one of these events. Yeah, I felt like I got just like pummeled down. It was a fresh experience, honestly.
That's fair enough. Yeah, we can always have good weekends. Okay, and then what heroes did you play in your sealed pools? Did you get a chance to play all of them? Was there one you played more?
So the one hero I didn't get to play was Lyath. I think we'll talk about Lyath specifically later as well, but Lyath is probably one of the heroes that doesn't come together that often, and but when it does come together, it is one of the most unfair things you can do in the format.
Okay.
But I think his hero text of having everything is really relevant and makes a lot of cards in the set not playable for him. So like both the Reviled and the Guardian, like half of his cards, like just you can't really play with Lyath. So even with 8 packs, you don't really get to play Lyath unless you open the right cards.
That makes sense, yeah. And we often see this in Seal that, you know, certain heroes are harder to come together than others. But it's cool to hear that there is a powerful Lyath deck out there if you have the cards for it. And we'll be getting into each of the heroes and what they want in a little bit. And then of the remaining heroes that you did play, was there one that you were especially fond of or found yourself playing more than the others, or was it pretty even between the other three?
I ended up playing KO the most, but I think my favorite hero of the set is Tough Nut. I would, if I had the pool to support Tough Nut, I would play it every time. And I think at pre-release, I'm just gonna play Tough Nut because I like it so much. And you can force it a little bit, so it's tough. Tough Nut's fine. Tough Nut's fine. Yeah, Tough Nut's really fun to play. If you like Guardian style gameplay, I would recommend Tough Nut over any of the Guardians.
That makes a lot of sense based on what I saw on stream. Tough Nut sort of seemed like the defensive, good numbers, block well style deck. We kind of saw it in action on stream a fair bit, certainly in the finals and throughout the day as well.
It's pretty funny where the Guardians are kind of the aggressive heroes and Tough Nut is the defensive hero instead of the other way around.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It did seem like the Guardians were often doing the big splashy things, which is Guardian-ish, but it seemed like a little bit less of the like.
I block you, swing hammer.
Yeah, you're not really doing like the Fab Fundies thing. You're more like I play 3 auras and attack you for 20.
Yeah, which is also fun.
Yeah, it's also fun and it's also Guardian, but very different from what we usually think of Guardian, especially in limited. But even in CC, honestly. So yeah, it was interesting to see that kind of spin on Guardian, and I know some people are very excited about it for CC. I think both Lyath and Pleiades look pretty interesting. But anyways, let's talk about how the format felt. So my first question is: this is our first format that doesn't have any weapons in it. That's sort of like a big reveal, and that they did a while back. And my question is, does this make the format particularly fatiguey because you don't have a weapon? And were there many stalemates that happened? Like, did you have any stalemates? Did you talk to people that had stalemates?
I've talked to somebody who's had a stalemate, but I don't think it was common because like I played how many rounds? Like 16, 17, 20. Like I played like 20 games, 22 games of like this format and I've never had a stalemate. I don't think the average player had a stalemate, unless they were like not including just like the draw, right? That happens because you ran out of time. I didn't have that either, but just like a stalemate where like neither player can kill each other. I don't think it happened that often, but when it did happen, I've heard that people like started a second game and either finished it or at least got to a point where one player could decide to concede essentially.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, because I had read a couple stories on Twitter, and I wasn't sure how common that was, because it's definitely something that could come up where like you block, you trade. Nobody has enough damage to win the game. We saw this happen even a little bit in Rosetta, like the Verdant Smear could potentially draw. Didn't happen very often, but was theoretically possible. But yeah, so it's good to hear that it doesn't happen too much. And then what about fatigue? Did the games come down to fatigue? Like was fatigue relevant in the games? Were people like running out of cards and then dying because they couldn't block? or is yeah, like how relevant was fatigue in this format?
I think fatigue is very relevant in this format because you have no weapons, and like maybe this was just happened to be like people were already just like playing to the fact that they don't have a weapon, so they're trying to finish the games. So the games didn't end up in a stalemate. So I think the players kind of get to decide if they want to like force a game into a stalemate or not. But most people wouldn't do that or made sure that that didn't happen. But a lot of the games will come down to be like, okay, you only have 2 blocks left in your deck. You're going to die now. Or like, oh, you're just like gonna run out of cards. You have 1 card left in your deck. You have 1 card in your hand now. I attack you for 7 or 6, and they can only block 1 card. They'll, they'll go to 2, and you have 2 cards left to swing your last attack or something like that. So I think it does come down to fatigue, where like you're gonna run out of cards and lose because you have physically no cards left and no weapon to swing. But because of that, like your opponent really has like a safe way to run you out of cards without getting attacked back by like a random weapon for 3. So they can be at 1 when they like, get rid of all your cards.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, and I think that's how the finals game ended. The warrior player ran out of cards, and the brute player still had like 6 cards left or something. So the warrior just conceded. There was no way to win from there. Yeah. Okay. So second question for you. This set brought back super rares. I guess I kind of have 2 questions. What slot did the super rares take? Like, could you open an M and a super rare, or is it only like in the M slots you open an M or a super rare?
I think the pack collation was like reviled, revered, guardian brute, generic, and then like equipment foil, rare. But the last rare can be a S or an M as well. So it's like just the one of them can be upgraded.
Okay, that makes sense. And then with the addition of super rares, did you feel like did your pool have more supers and M's, and like did that lead to a bombier format where like games would be swung by these super rares and majestics, or like how balmy was the format, I guess?
I'm actually not sure if there was like more S's or M's than like a regular seal pool. Like I feel like I had like 3 to 4 majestic or supers in every pool, I think. So I guess that's like one more than usual.
Yeah, but not hugely more. Like where you don't have like 7 or something.
Yeah, it doesn't replace every pack with a super. So like it's not like ridiculously more than before. But yeah, I think the super rares are really important, and that kind of dictates what deck you get to play mostly. So depending on what supers you open, you kind of just like go with that hero or go with that, that deck. And the more supers you have for the same hero, the stronger your deck is for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, if you see multiple of the high rarity cards, then it's probably a good hero to be in. We've been seeing that more and more in Flesh and Blood. Some of early Flesh and Blood, I feel like the Majestics weren't always the best cards, but I feel like they've been trying to make the Majestics and the rares a little better than the commons. At least most of the time. Still have to do your card evaluation and make sure that it's a relevant limited card. But for the most part, those cards are pretty strong.
Yeah, I agree. It's yeah, the format does feel balmy. It's like I feel like every single time you lose, you lost to some kind of majestic or like you lost to some kind of super that got played. And I think like the high quality games in this format is like when neither player has a good super or majestic. Those games are really grindy and I kind of like it. But a lot of the board breakers are just like supers and like majestics, and you're just like, what the hell just happened? Like it just died out of nowhere. It is like all majestics or supers.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I had sort of wondered if that would be the case, and yeah, it sounds like it is. So okay, good to know. And then was there like a Germinate or a Miragai? Like was there some card that was just like, especially like an especially unbeatable bomb, or were there just like lots of pretty good M's?
There isn't an unbeatable bomb. There is a so Lyath and KO gets access to a card called Bully Tactics. Like let's say you're playing like against Lyath, you play Bully Tactics. It kind of doesn't do much. It does do stuff, but it doesn't actually just like end the game. But if you're a tough nut and someone plays Bully Tactics on you, you just kind of immediately lose the game. Because you lose every card in your hand when your opponent plays it. So bully tactics is the reviled M that you can pay up to 3, and for each resource you pay, you intimidate one. That means Tough Nut's a 3 intellect hero, so they just rip your hand, you intimidate all 3 cards, and then they swing in for like with pumps ends up being like 8-ish. So you just like
Right.
take 8 true damage. You could just that could just immediately end the game if you're already at 8. If you're at like 14 or something, you just like go to 6, you pick up your 3 cards, and Tough Nut just can't convert 3 random cards all the time. So you just also lose like 3-4 points of value just because you couldn't, you know, convert your hand as well. So like I feel like bully tactics, if you're playing Tough Nut, is like unbelievably unfair.
Sure, that makes sense. Yeah, the intimidate three when you only have three cards does sound pretty brutal. So that yeah sounds kind of like Rhydar, honestly. So like CC Rhydar, but yeah,
But it's on 1 card and you need a blue.
and 20 life format.
Exactly, exactly. I feel like in a 40 life format, this wouldn't be that much of an issue, but in a 20 life format, oh, a third of your life and you have no interaction except for maybe like a piece of equipment is not good.
That makes sense. You mentioned Tough not always being able to convert his hands. Is that sort of like a general theme of the format? Like, are heroes wanting to like block and play and attack a lot and not really able to convert, or is there like a fair bit of go again?
There is, I think there is a fair bit of go again, but you need to make sure you put in your deck. So like a lot of the non-attacks are just go again, or like guardian cards are just like all instants, so you just get to convert it. So I think it's just Tough Nut that has a little bit of harder time converting because there isn't that many good revered non-attacks.
Right, and then the Guardians get the instant auras, so Tough Nut doesn't have access to that either. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then, would you say that those go again kind of cards or the instants are things to look for in red? Like, I know in a lot of formats, like the deck that has a lot of go again is pretty powerful. Do you think that translates to this format, or is
Yeah, I think so. I think the red go again cards are just good. The reviled pumps just has like an additional ability that makes it well worth it. And the guardian instants are just kind of how guardians win. So yeah, like when guardians get to like attack you for like 24 with a confidence token, it feels really unfair. So
yeah?
that's kind of what you're trying to set up, I think.
That makes sense. I definitely heard stories of people just getting attacked for like 26 on turn 2 or 3 of the game with the confidence and exploding. Is that something that happened a lot, or is that like kind of hard to set up?
I think if you're Pallades, that's your game plan. Is you're trying to make a confidence token on your 26th turn and beat your opponent. The thing is, the other hero has counterplay to this, and like Tough Nut is a 3 intellect hero, but I've heard like Pallades attack for 25, Tough Nut blocked for like 14 with 2 cards or something, and you're just like, what just happened in that game? Like, like how is either of those fair?
Yeah, yeah. There's like toughness tokens and some things that increase defense.
Yeah, like Tough Nut can make like 7 toughness tokens and then block for 10 plus 3 on 1 card, and then activate their brother's arm and make it 14 block on 14 block on the Guardians like 26 attack. And the Guardians just like they use up all their cards to just do like 10 damage. Like like that's not winning for the Guardians, so
Okay, interesting. And then what about the hero balance? Like, do you think the classes, the talents, were they pretty balanced? Was there like a particular hero or talent or class that stood out? I know that in the calling top eight we saw 6 brute pod, and it was Tough Nut versus Pleiades in the finals, and Tough Nut ended up winning the whole pod despite it being 6 brutes. So do you think that what did you think? Were the heroes pretty balanced, or did it kind of skew one way?
I don't know about draft because I wasn't able to draft. There was like no events to draft or no ways to draft. At least like efficiently. So I don't know exactly about the draft format and how balanced that would be, but I think in general the Guardian cards are just a little bit easier to like convert essentially when it's in your deck because brute cards are just attacks with 3 blocks, so you can kind of just play it out. So I think that's kind of what happened, and like for you to get like a good Pallades or a Lyeth deck together, you do need very specific cards at specific colors, and like you need enough blues to support it, and they can't really be 2 blocks; they want to be 3 blocks type things. So I feel like the brutes are kind of like you pile together cards and it'll be okay, whereas the guardians you need to really draft your deck, and it being week 0 maybe had to do a little bit with that, where maybe some people were like evaluating cards a little bit higher than they should have, or like lower than they should have. That's kind of what it feels like what might have happened. When I did talk to a couple people drafting the format, it feels like they're just like, oh, um, like they were trying to get into like the Guardians, and then they're like, oh, KO was super open, should have been in KO. And it's like kind of like the general consensus of draft 1, and then in draft 2 was like general consensus as like, oh, Brutes got overdrafted, but it was kind of fine.
Okay. So Brood is like a little bit more of the kind of like good stuff, good numbers deck, and then the Guardians are like a little bit more synergistic, making big kind of splashy plays and need specific pieces to enable that. Is that kind of like the general vibe?
Yeah, and I think KO and Tough Nut wants different cards, like very different cards.
Okay.
So they don't really share a pool together.
Interesting. Okay. So even within the Brute class cards, there's like pretty clear division.
Yeah, yeah. And whereas like Lyath and Pleiades want the same cards, so they kind of fight for those cards, whereas KO and Tough Nut doesn't fight for those cards.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. We'll talk about the specific heroes and what they want very soon, but yeah, that kind of makes sense to me conceptually. That KO kind of wants stuff that wears his like set the base to 6 very well, whereas Toughnut just wants things that are base 6 to get the chair and the free toughness token from his ability. So okay, and then before we move into the pre-release primer, final question about the format. What do you think about the overall quality of this format? Did you like it? I know that some people, I think even us, we speculated that perhaps Super Slam wasn't in PQs and Worlds due to like some kind of balance or quality issues with a limited environment. This is like a speculation I've heard of a lot. So, what did you think? Obviously, it's only your first impression, but how good is Super Slam?
I think it's not that bad. Like, if they decided to go with like, bright lights for many people, I don't know why they can't go with this set. I would say that this is not a banger set, but it is very like a combination of heavy hitters and bright lights, where you can kind of just like get high rolled for no reason and lose. And at the same time, you probably need to like draft the set like 10 times for you to get like a real feel of like what cards are good in which heroes. But yeah, I think it's not the worst, but it's not great.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to try it out at pre-release and see how that goes. Okay, let's go on to our pre-release primer. So, in the pre-release kits, you get 4 equipments. You can play them. This is to make sure you have equipment in every slot. These equipments are punching gloves, helm of hindsight, garland of spring, and Toby jugs. How are these equipment? Are they pretty good? Are there any of them that you like play more often than not, or are you kind of hoping to do better than these equipments?
Um, I don't think you can get better than these equipments, except for maybe the Helm of Hindsight. But the Helm of Hindsight is really, really good in a lot of the heroes. So there will be spots where, like, at the calling, I had a Helm of Hindsight and a like the reviled helmet, and I would side in and out between them depending on the matchup I was playing. Helm of Hindsight, for its ability, which is pay 3 to put a card on top of your deck, is much better in this format than in any other format that we've seen before. So yeah, I think all 4 of these equipment is just like kind of close to best in slot for a lot of decks. Like if you aren't Tough Nut, you don't want Toby Jugs, so like you want a different like piece, but you get 8 equipments in your regular packs too, so you should be able to replace it. But most of the time, like Garland of Spring was best in slot. Punching Glove is definitely best in slot for most decks. And, Helm of Hindsight is fine, or you get a different headpiece, or Toby Jugs is premium in Tough Nut, or you want something else for your other heroes.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, the Toby Jugs, you can pay a resource to block two. It's basically Ironhide. Garland of Spring is basically Blossom of Spring. You make a resource at action speed. Helm of Hindsight, pay three to put a card on top, and then Punching Gloves is two resources for an action. Destroy it. Your next attack action card this turn that you play this turn gets +2, and the action is go again. So yeah, that sort of makes sense. These do read as pretty powerful, and so okay, so if you don't have like other equipment to go to, it's not a huge deal, and you'll often just end up playing these anyways. I'm kind of curious, what makes the Helm of Hindsight so good in this format?
So Helm of Hindsight is kind of like part of your combo finish in Tough Nut. So in Tough Nut, it might be just like best in slot actually, and in just like the other decks, because this game is so prone to being fatigued, and the existence of supers, you kind of just want to put your good card back in your deck. So like, just imagine like putting your premium Majestic on top of your deck. Like one plan against Tough Nut as a reviled hero is to like play bully tactics and do chip damage. Use Helm of Hindsight and put it back on top, and they just like look at you and be like, "Yep, I'm coming in for 8 with this card next turn." You're already at 7 because you took the first bully tactics. Like, what do you do?
Right, that makes sense. Like maybe you have on the edge of their seats the +5 pump on the board at one, and or about yeah at one, and then you can put bully tactics on top of your deck, and your turn you drop into bully tactics, and you're like, can you take, I guess, 4 cards from me? Because if you you can block with 3 of them and then keep up blue and the bully tactics, and that'll be 8 with intimidating their whole hand. Okay.
And a lot of times it's just like Tough Nut can't really do 14 damage. Like it's Tough Nuts that can do 14 damage are the good Tough Nut decks, and like the regular Tough Nut decks won't be able to like swing more than like 10 in a turn. So
Right, that makes sense. So yeah, maybe it sounds like the format sometimes is more about setting up really big, powerful plays rather than, not that turn to turn value doesn't matter, but setting up big, powerful plays is quite good. So it kind of makes sense that being able to replay a super or a majestic would really facilitate that game plan.
And the other thing that Helm of Hindsight can do is it can win clashes. You can guarantee win a clash if you really need to by pitching a blue, and that's really powerful. And if you're in the brute class, there is a common called Unexpected Backhand. This is a red pitch 3 cost 7 power with 3 block. And this card reads, when you win a clash revealing this, deal 1 damage to the other hero.
Yeah, yeah. And this card comes in all pitches too, so you could just have like a blue one or whatever. Obviously the red clash is the best, but
So it wins the clash actually. But I've seen or I've heard of people pitch stacking Unexpected Backhand triple clash, or like they'll like triple block with a clash card and then use the helmet to put the Unexpected Backhand on top to do 3 unblockable damage to your opponent at the end of the game.
interesting. I also heard stories. Somebody said that the, what is the majestic called? Stampede, Reckless Stampede, the brute 2 for 7 that blocks 0 and says whenever a card defends this clash with the defending hero, the winner deals 1 damage to the other hero, and each hero can put the reveal card to the bottom in between each clash. I heard somebody make the comment that like quite a few games ended to Reckless Stampede plus the Unexpected Backhand combo, and I was sort of like, how can this come up that much when you have like a rare and an M, and the rare has to be exactly on top of your deck? But I guess if there's the equipment, that makes a lot of sense.
Unexpected Backhand's a common.
Was a common. Okay, okay. Well, still, if you can put it on top of your deck, I can see how that would be like even easier to set up. Basically, that seems like quite the combo. Because if you win the clash, you deal 2 damage, and then every time they block with a card, you deal 2 damage to them. So it's like kind of unblockable.
Yeah, it's really strong. Edison was playing Tough Nut in the calling, and all he was doing was pitch stacking Unexpected Backhand combo and just naturally pitch stacking that. So there are sickos out there doing that kind of stuff too.
Okay, good to know. All right, moving into our heroes. First up, we have Tough Nut. I know you mentioned this is your favorite. What do you want in Tough Nut?
So the most important thing about Tough Nut is that you want yellows and 6 power yellows. Or I guess if you had 6 power blues, you'd want that, but they don't exist in the game. There's like maybe like 1 or 2 in this format at like Majestic or Super. but typically you just want to have 6 powers. So when you activate Tough Nut's ability, you make a Toughness token. So I guess I'll read Tough Nut real quickly. It's a 3 attack hero, 20 life, and its ability is instant. You tap itself, you pitch the top card of your deck, and if it has 6 or more power, the crowd cheers you. And then whenever the crowd cheers you, you make a Toughness token. What you want to do with this hero is like kind of tap Tough Nut every turn, and you want to pitch a yellow with 6 power, make a toughness token, and then swing with your last card in your hand, which is hopefully a 2 cost for 6 power. So you swing a 2 cost for 6 power. You just have like this turn where you block for 7, attack for 6. So you just like a 13 damage cycle turn every single turn essentially. And you are just blocking with 2 cards, attacking with 2 cards type of deck.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I guess I have a couple of questions about Tough Nut. First off, you mentioned wanting the yellow sixes, which really makes sense for his pitchability. Are you able to play many reds? Obviously, reds are like the most powerful cards to play, but there's sort of this tension where if you are wanting to play a 2 cost, you flip a red off the top. That can be problematic for you. Like, are you able to play many reds in Tough Nut, and are there ways to mitigate that sort of variance of flipping a red if you are playing them?
So I think my take by the end of the week was you play like 15 red, like 10 yellow, 5 blues kind of thing.
Okay.
So you actually just don't want to skimp out on reds. The way you lose its tough nut is if you can't attack and convert your cards, or like you can't force your opponent to block. So if you're always just swinging like yellows and blues, you will fall behind. The turns where you flip a red, sometimes your turn will just end. You just need to make sure you can arsenal your card. The ways that I actually lost games was when I activated Tough Nut and I flipped the blue off the top and I didn't get to cheer. Like,
Interesting. So then you miss out on that one value from the toughness, and that kind of adds up over the game.
yeah, so like when you miss too many times off of your toughness cheers, you kind of like lose out value because like as long as you can convert every card in your deck by the end of the game, you actually just like usually win the game as Tough Nut because all of your cards are 6 powers, 3 blocks. Not being able to like swing a card once is fine. And if you have like a Garland of Springs, like even if you flip a red, you can swing your 2 costs. Or there are just like other ways you could convert your hand if you build your deck that way. And just make sure that you don't rely on hitting a blue or a yellow when you do keep like a bigger hand. I think is what I would have to say.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so yeah, so you want to make sure that you can arsenal the card and make sure that you have a plan for flipping any of the colors. And I guess if you like arsenal a red and then you keep a red to play off the top, if you hit another red, as long as the card in arsenal is a 2 cost, like you can pitch another card to play it. It's not good, but it's not a disaster.
It's actually relatively fine because if you block with 1 card on the last turn, it usually blocks for 4 or 5.
Yeah.
So like you block with 1 card for 5, you keep 2 more cards in your hand, activate Tough Nut, you pitch a red, and then you swing in for 7, with whichever card in your hand or your arsenal. It's fine. It's just like you just had a 12-point turn. Like that's not even that bad.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense that you can kind of get away with it, and it sort of sorts itself out. If you miss, you get an arsenal. Then you either get another arsenal if you hit the yellow, or if you miss again, you can pitch it, and then yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and if your hand really requires it, you can just keep a yellow in your hand or a blue in your hand, right? So then like you can always pitch that card.
That makes sense.
I think the really really strong Tough Nut decks are the Tough Nut decks that you get to activate Tough Nut's ability on your opponent's turn.
Okay, walk me through that. What are you hoping to do on your opponent's turn with the resources?
So with your resources, there's a couple of ways. So as already mentioned, the equipment Toby Jugs is the pay 1 resource to block for 2. Other than that, we have Brothers in Arms. So you can pay 1 to make it into a 4 block. And there's a card in Revered called Dig Up. So Dig Up is a common, and I'll just read the red one. So it's a red 3 cost 7 power for 3 block. And this card reads, when this defends, you may pay up to 3 resources. Create that many toughness tokens. So You can activate Tough Nut. I've had spots where I will have a Dig Up, a Brothers in Arms in my hand, and I would have the Toby Jugs. You can, before blocks, activate Tough Nut to see how many resources you're going to make, and then make your decision on how you want to block after.
Okay.
There are spots where I would be like, activate Tough Nut. I flip a yellow. Okay, I'm not going to use this dig in. I'm going to block with my Toby Jugs and Brothers in Arms and pay 2 resources to block for 6 total now, or 7 total with a toughness token, and block out your attack. And then I'll have 2 cards in my hand. One's a blue and one's a red. One's a red Diggin. You pitch the blue and attack you for 7 with the red Diggin. Like things like that can happen.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I can definitely see the strength of. Well, we've mentioned that like flipping a red and missing on being able to play your card isn't a disaster. It's not good for you either, and I can see how just like having that flexibility to activate on your turn, then get full information because you can do that before blocks, then get full information on how you should block and play your turn. That does sound really powerful, and it makes sense that those are cards to look for.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Anything else for Tough Nut that you're looking for? So yellow 6 powers, you mentioned like 10 yellows, 5 blues, 2 cost attacks to play off of the yellows, things that let you spend resources on your opponent's turn to block, like Brother in Arms and Dig Up. I think there's also like a super or an M block card that lets you do this. Anything else that you're looking for in Tough Nut, or is that pretty much it?
The clash cards. So the last thing is the clash cards. There's the Revered Toughs matchup that makes toughness tokens when you win, and there is the Brute card that makes a Vigor token when you win. So winning is actually not that important. You don't really care if you win or lose. These clash cards actually has this weird line of text at the end that they say you may put the revealed card to the bottom of its owner's deck, which means that you can decide. You basically get to look at the card that's on top and start planning your turn by knowing what card you're going to pitch off Tough Nut after you look at the card with Vigorous Mashup or the Toughness Mashup.
Right. So like if yeah, you know like my card costs 3, I block with a vigorous smash up. The card on top is a yellow. I won the clash. I got a vigor, so then I can play my card. Or the card on top was a red, but that's not really good enough, so I need to sink it and get another look at a potential higher resource card for my turn.
Yeah, and there was a lot of spots where like someone will block with 2 clash cards, and they'll be like, "Look at top, oh yellow, bottom deck. Look at top again, it's a blue. Okay, that's nice. Keep it on top. Activate Tough Nut. Swing with my 3 costs." Like that just happened a lot in this format.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, that ability does seem very good and very synergistic with Tough Nut. It's funny because I've been playing those cards in KO NCC. I'm playing the blue Vigorous Clash Smash Up or whatever. My heuristic for that has just been: is the card Blood Rush Bellow? If no, put it to the bottom so I get closer to my Blood Rush Bellow. And I'm sort of like, why do I just get to go through my deck to get Blood Rush Bellows? But I guess the synergy with Tough Nut is probably the intended design purpose of that clash mechanic.
Yeah, that's actually kind of funny. For CC, it's just like, oh, get my power card faster.
Yeah, yeah. Is this my power card? No, to the bottom with you. Like that's like pretty much what I did. For a while it was like, what are my odds to draw a blue? I'm like, I don't think that really matters. The deck has so many blues. I just want to see my Blood Rush Bellows. But it's cool to hear about how it's used in a more interesting way and limited.
Yeah, I guess in KO 2 you can like if you see like a 6 power, you're gonna come in with the like Wild Rise or something. You could also like make sure there's a 6 on top.
Yeah, yeah. There's like definitely some interesting interactions with it for sure. But yeah, for the most part, I've just been digging for power cards in CC.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. All right, let's move on to KO next.
Okay, so KO, Strong Arm. He is a reviled brute hero, 20 health for intellect. You start the game with 1 weapon zone, doesn't matter for limited, and then has an instant 4 cost target attack action card you control, has base 6, and whenever the crowd boos you, create a vigor token.
Yeah. So the Vigor token, very good in this hero. I think I'll start with there. The line with this KO is at the end of the game when you only have blues left. The reviled attacks are 1 power. So what you do is you attack with your 1 power blue, and you keep a blue in your hand with a vigor token, and then you can turn that 1 power blue into a 6 power. That is kind of like what you're trying to set up in your end game to, make all of your cards convert for 6. So you're basically like any other brute and or like a tough nut. You can attack for 6 every single turn. So that's like your end game, and how you can like finish games that way is like making sure your cards are converting. But the strong thing you can do with KO is actually playing cards like Flex Speed and Flex Strength. These are the brute cards in the set, commons, and both of the cards do something when their attack is at 6 or greater. And it doesn't really matter how you make it 6, as long as it has 6 power at some point during the attack, it will get the bonus. Flex Speed, if it has 6 or more power, will gain Go again, and it's a 5 power base at red. And Flex Strength is will get 3 extra power if its power is at 6. And these are cards you kind of want to play, and you want to play pumps. So you want to make might tokens, or you want to play like the reviled. There's 3 different pumps in there: the 1 cost, 2 cost, 3 cost. Doesn't matter which one you play. You play that, and then you play Flex Speed, and then one more attack. You are just well ahead of the curve. I've heard of good KO decks during this weekend just being like 8-8, 8-8, 8-8 3 turns in a row. So if you can do something like that, you are winning games.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense that these would pair well with the pumps. You don't really want to use your hero ability on these because you're only giving it like +1 or +2 in the case. I guess it's kind of like +5 in the case of Flex Strength, but you're paying a lot of resources. You make Flex Strength into a 6 with your hero ability. It comes in for 9. 3-card 9, pretty decent. But if you combine like a 1-cost pump or some might tokens, that's much more efficient.
Yes. And you say a 3-card 9 is not that impressive, but a 3-card 9 on a blue Flex Strength is very impressive.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So the +3 stays static, but the base changes. So the blue is actually very good. Okay,
Yes. So like in your pitch stack, like you can like pitch, yeah, your very hard pitch stack of pitching Flex Strength and 2 other blues in your pitch stack, turns into, oh, you couldn't attack me for enough. I'll pitch blue, attack you with Flex Strength. 1 card, you're holding 1 card, and they just like look at you, and you're just like, yeah, attack for 2. How much do you want to block? You want to block for 3, or do you want to block for 9? Like, what's the play here? And at that point, if your opponent gives you 9 block, you just arsenal your last card in your hand. And if it's a 1 power, it turns into a 6 on your next attack. On the next turn.
right, that makes sense. So I guess like any of these attacks that gain power are going to be pretty good for KOR Armed and Dangerous. I would imagine like Mocking Blow is a pretty good one. This is one that I've seen a bunch in CC. This is the 0 cost, 1 power. When this attacks, if you have more life than the opposing hero, the crowd boos you, and if you've been booed, this attack gets +4 at red, 3 at yellow, 2 at blue.
Yeah, Mocking Blow is not fair. Mostly if they have a Vigor token. It's
Yeah,
actually not that good without a Vigor token or a way to generate a resource. But once they have 1 resource floating, you just like your opponent attacks you with a Mocking Blow. If they have higher life, it creates a new Vigor for their next turn. And then you're just staring at this card, and you're just like, how is this fair? Like, how much do I block it? If I overblock it, they don't activate. If I block it for like a reasonable amount, they just like pump it over by like 4 points. You're just like, how? What do I do?
yeah. And it's a 2-card 10 if you have the Vigor token, which is really crazy. I was playing against a KO deck, I think it was last night that was doing this, and I was like, pretty strong. So just like good numbers, good value.
Yeah, and you can do this in limited, and it's you just need to open a Mocking Blow. So yeah, hard ask, huh?
Yeah. So okay, so I kind of see what KO is trying to do. Sounds like really you want the pumps and good targets and good shoutouts with the flex speed and flex strength, but really I guess anything that kind of gets bonuses when you attack with it or when it gains power or whatever is probably higher value to pump.
Yeah. One thing
Yeah,
I just want to mention will be most of the games will just come down to if the KO has Majestics. The main one is Big Bully. If they have Big Bully, you kind of just have to accept the fact that you're probably not winning this game. So this is a 2-cost red. Sorry, it's a super rare actually, and it's 4 power base with 3 block. And this card reads: when this attacks a hero, if you have more life than them, the crowd boos you. If you've been booed this turn, this card's base is doubled. So it ends up being like a 3 card 12.
So it's either a 2 card 8 or a 3 card 12. Yeah, that sounds pretty gross.
Yeah, so like at a base is a 2 card 8, and you're just like, oh yeah. Or you activate KO's ability and it's a 2 card 3 card 12, and you're just like, okay, like your opponent plays this, you're like guaranteed to get fatigued, and it's not hard to turn on. And if you even if you are lower life than your opponent, like there are ways to boo your opponent, so you can just boo yourself. But yeah, it's this card is a very feels bad moment when your opponent plays it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then I guess the final piece of the puzzle is you probably want cards that boo you. Is that true?
You don't need it. I think it's like, if you have it, it's kind of nice, but you don't
Mm.
really need to be booing every turn. There's a card called Clench the Upper Hand. It's a common. It's like a 0 cost, 2 block. But what's important here is it says when this attacks or defends, if you have more life than each other here, the crowd boos you. So it kind of, you just block for 2 and generate a resource, or generate a vigor token if your life is higher. And that card is just like reasonably good at just making the vigor token so your hand converts really nicely on the next turn.
Gotcha. That makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense. And you can kind of like the requiring higher life is a lot easier to do when you defend than when you attack.
Oh, and I guess the last thing to note would be Horns of the Despised. This is the common headpiece for the reviled heroes. So this card reads: when this defends, the crowd boos you. This basically is Garland of Springs. When you block with it, you make a resource, so it's just like an upgraded Garland of Springs.
And it also blocks one. So
Yeah,
and you can play both of them, huh?
yeah, you can play both of them. You can
It's
play
pretty good.
both of them. Yeah, it's pretty gross. I think it's surprisingly, like when you read KO, you're like, why doesn't this make a might token? And then you're like, oh, you play it out, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm actually glad it makes a bigger token.
Yeah. The Vigor makes a lot of sense with the 4 cost abilities. Then you can activate it with a blue. Because when you pay for resources for it, there's very select cards that's good on. You have certain super rares, sure, but most of the time you're hoping to pitch 1 blue to activate that ability for it to really be worthwhile.
Yeah, yeah. But KO is basically just like the play good cards, do good things deck, and is like the most regular 4 intellect 20 life hero in the format.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I guess my final question about KO was, um, it seems like he's a little resource intensive, and you can potentially use lots of blues in your endgame. How many blues are you running in your KO deck?
I'm actually not sure. I've seen like a very numbers of deck construction with this deck. I think you can be pretty flexible, anywhere between like I've seen like as low as 8. I've seen as many as 15. It really just kind of depends on what your game plan is and what you're trying to do. And I feel like just like looking at your deck, making sure your resource curve works is more important. So like if you play a lot of 3 cost brute attacks, you want more blues. If you're playing a lot more zeros, then you don't need that many blues. So just be flexible and be willing to shift and choose depending on what actual cards are in your deck.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. All right, ready to go on to the Guardians?
Yeah, let's go into the Guardians.
First up, we have Pleiades Superstar, or I guess just Pleiades for limited. She's a 4 intellect revered guardian hero with 20 life. She has an ability that is an instant. Tap. Remove a suspense counter from an aura you control. You may put a suspense counter on an aura of suspense you control. Whenever the crowd cheers you, create a confidence token. So Pleiades gets good access to confidence or evasion for her pumps, and the pumps come from the auras of suspense. Notably, the removing a counter is a cost, and the putting a counter on another aura is a may. There are some auras that you want to stick around, like there's like a persistent +1 effect, or there's a persistent your cards cost 1 less. So the suspense is killing me is the +1 effect, and what happens next is the cost reducer. So putting auras of suspense on, or putting suspense counters on those auras of suspense is always an upside. But if you are wanting to get all of your pumps to go off at the same time, you don't have to put the counter somewhere if you don't want to.
Yeah, I think you said that pretty well. I think in this limited format, the suspense is killing me. So the one that gives an extra power is the premium one. And if you can keep this alive for the whole game, I think you are gonna win the game.
That makes sense. Just like a persistent +1 that you get turn to turn. It's sort of interesting because in constructed, I think the what happens next is the really broken one because you get a free resource and you can sort of like build your deck around having like essentially like a tunic counter every turn, but it can be on both turns. And if you ever get two of them, you can start playing like the 2-cost suspense auras for free, and you can play them on both. You can get like 2 resources on both turns, and it's super ridiculous.
Mm.
But yeah, in limited, it sounds much more reasonable to just do the +1. And if you start the game with +1 value and just chain that, that sounds pretty impressive.
Yeah, there's the games where your opponent opens suspense is killing me. It almost feels unwinnable. That's kind of how good this card is. As long as they can keep it alive, or there's no real way to like interact with this card. So yeah, they just like plop this down, and you're just like, why is every single attack coming in for an extra one? And because they're like removing like suspense counters from their pumps onto this card, like it's not just one. It's like usually like 6 more, 7 more. It's just like it starts to snowball very quickly, and you end up just like losing out by like this card like giving all of their attacks as a whole like 5 extra power because it's been on the board for 5 turns. It's really powerful.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And keep in mind that that the suspense is killing me, as well as I think all of the auras of suspense are instants. This means there's also play patterns with playing, so you can play something on your opponent's turn and tick it down on their opponent's turn so that it triggers on your turn. You can play the suspense is killing me as an instant, sort of like a combat trick. So it's basically like a lunging press that then stays on the board. And in fact, you should be playing it on your turn, not only for the surprise factor, but also because then if you play it on your opponent's turn, you lose a counter. But if you wait till your turn, you kind of like save a counter. And yeah, just like important to remember that these cards are instants. And I think part of their power budget is that they are so flexible because they are instant speed.
Yeah. Some of these cards shouldn't have been an instant. Like the suspense is killing me should have been an action card.
In the finals, it was being played. It got played as an action card, and I was sitting there and I was like, "No, it's an instant. Why would you play it here? You could have just saved it and played it later, and not like lost a counter and given your opponent information for no reason."
I see. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Honestly, at that point, it's fair. The card will be fair. Yeah, I think for Pallades though, the other than the suspense is killing me and just being just like a guardian with all of their cards being one more powerful than everything else. The most important part about Pallades is you need a way to cheer. A confidence token is very strong and it really does push damage, and but it's really hard, at least in limited, to line up your confidence token on the same turn that all your auras are pop and have a big attack with it. So
Hmm.
what's really good here is the card called Helm of the Adored. It's a headpiece. And it says when you block, you cheer. So you basically make a confidence token on block and then immediately pops with all of your auras and you can send your big attack. So as long as you have some way to cheer on demand, you'll be able to send the confidence big attack on that one turn. So like if you have like 3 auras popping at the same time and an 8 power attack, you can easily come in for like 20-25 confidence, and typically that would close the game because you've chipped some damage here and there. Your opponent blocks for like 6 or 7, and it's just not enough.
Yeah, the important thing to remember about confidence is that it's 2 cards, or well, 2 non-block cards. So block cards can let you go above this, but basically that is to say like equipment are counted in this. So yeah, big confidence attacks are really hard to interact with And I think that's going to be even more relevant in CC than limited, but even in limited, it's very powerful.
Yeah, I think playing against Pleiades, what I can say is don't be afraid to IP penalty yourself to keep a block card in hand on the turn that all their aura is gonna pop.
Yeah. Do you ever not attack them if they have Helm of Adored and you see they have like it must be right sometimes, right? Like if they have like 15 power or something in auras and they have Helm of the Adored, you're like maybe I don't attack.
So I think the most common misplay that I've heard was, man, I attacked into a Pleiades when their auras were about to pop.
Yeah, that
Yeah, that
makes
is just like
sense.
the most common misplay that I've heard. And they're just like, if I just did an attack, I would have won the game. Is what I hear a lot. There's another card. Even if they don't have the helmet, I think Fight from Behind also triggers on block. So Fight from Behind is a 2-cost revered action attack. The red one is 6 power, blocks for 2. And it says when this attacks or defends, if you have less life than each other hero, the crowd cheers you. So if you just attack, even if they don't have the helmet, if they have like Fight from Behind, they could cheer on demand. And I think some block cards or some supers also cheer on block.
Yeah, there's a super that blocks and cheers. It seems like the condition for these, I'm looking right now at cards that cheer. It seems like all the cards that block and cheer from hand require them being on lower life. So if your opponent is lower life than you and they have a lot of power and auras, you might not want to attack them. Even if they have the helmet, you should definitely be considering it. But even if they don't have the helmet, you may want to consider um, either that super or the common fight from behind as a potential card that they could block with and get cheered, and then you could potentially lose to confidence. So if they're higher life, though, you I don't think there's any reason to not attack them.
Yeah, if they're at higher life, there's no reason to not attack them. But if they're at higher life and it's like not like 3-2, you're losing the game. Like,
Yeah, they have higher life and they have 15 power on board. It's like oh.
yeah, like I don't know how you're ever winning that game, but like yeah, even if you don't attack them, I don't know if you can win.
That's a pretty fair point. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anything else that Pleiades is looking for besides it sounds so to sum it up, we talked about auras of suspense, especially the suspense is killing me. I'm guessing you also want the red plus power auras. So this is edge of their seats, act of glory, and tension in the air. And then what else? Ways to cheer. And is that kind of more or less it? I guess good guardian attacks.
Yeah, like as long as you have those like big aura suspense and then some way to cheer, and then the suspense is killing me, which are almost all commons. You kind of can make a good Pleiades deck. So if you just want to make a reasonable Pleiades deck, that's all you really need. And then you just need some kind of like 3-cost attacks that there's a bunch in Revered and Guardian. I guess I would say the biggest shout out will be a common in Guardian. Let me find what it's called. The card is called Shoot Your Mouth Off. It's a 3-cost at red. It is a 8 power 2 block. And this card reads, when the combat chain closes, if this didn't hit, the defending hero creates a confidence token. If your opponent blocks this card, no way they're sending 10 back at you with confidence. And it's usually going to be like a 6 at most. So yeah, like I don't really get the downside on this card. I don't think this has a downside. So yeah, you just play every copy of Red Shoot Your Mouth Off in any Guardian, or at least in Pleiades, sorry. Lyath is not that good, but in Pleiades you definitely play every copy you can find.
Yeah, 3 for 8 seems pretty crazy. It's like I remember us talking about how unfair tilling is, and this is it doesn't decompose you, but it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's 3-4-8. The thing that makes me a little bit mad is like all the other classes also have this ability, like the when it closes, if it didn't hit, they make some kind of token.
Yeah,
All of the other tokens are actually like kind of bad for you, where like they make like a vigor token or like a might token, but they make a confidence token on this one. Like, what do you do with a confidence token? Like nothing. Like it doesn't do anything.
you have like one, maybe 2 cards if you have an arsenal. It's like okay,
Yeah, it's like, and then the card you swing is for six or something, and it's like, oh, you can only block with two cards on my power attack for six. What are you gonna do?
Interesting. Okay, that's a good note as well. Okay, ready to move on to Lyath Goldmane. 5 intellect, reviled guardian hero, 20 life. The base attack and defense of cards you control are halved. This also applies to your equipment. Instant, 2 resources, tap him. The crowd boos you, and defending action cards you control get +1 defense this turn. Notably, only applies to action cards. And whenever the crowd boos you, create a might. So that 2 cost ability will not only give all your actions +1 defense, it will also make a might token. Lyath is really interesting. First 5 intellect hero that we've seen definitely comes with a pretty big downside. I think it's safe to say you don't really want the big guardian attacks. They scale really poorly when they get halved. But what kind of cards are you looking for in Lyath Goldmane to make use of this 5 intellect and kind of, I guess, it feels like you're trying to bypass this penalty that he has, is the way I would put it.
Yeah, I think you're very right on that. All the cards that are good are cards that don't have power. So
Mm.
all the pumps, both at Reviled and Guardian, Villainous Bow, Sadistic Scowl, and all the suspense pumps we just talked about in Pleiades, you want all of them. And if you don't have a density of these and at red, you are going to be a little bit too weak. Because your cards won't block, you need them to be at red, or you're just gonna fall behind against your opponent pretty quickly. And because you're a reviled hero, some of your abilities or your cards will work if you have higher life. So you really do need to be on the offense and just like really attacking your opponent and putting them as low as possible, as quickly as possible.
That makes a lot of sense. And Lyath is generally going to scale best with attacks sort of similar to KO that get power when they attack or give you some kind of bonus effect when they attack, and then wear pumps really, really well is sort of the name of the game. We mentioned Mocking Blow and KO, also exactly the kind of card that you're looking for in Lyath.
Yep. There's a rare to shout out here. It's a generic. It's called Punch Above Your Weight. It is a red 0 cost 2 power with 2 block. And this card reads, when this attacks, you may pay 3. If you do, this gets +5 power. So it ends up being a 2 card 6 on just on its own. And you want to play cards like this. And if you do this kind of stuff, then this card wears pumps really well, so you can easily attack for like 15 or like 18 with punch above your weight off of
Mhm.
like 4 cards, which is pretty strong.
Yeah, Lyath sort of really wants to create these big attacks and kind of go over the top that way has been sort of what I've found, and yeah, so attacks like this are really good. And the other thing that I want to mention about Lyath that's a little bit different from KO is some of your effects that like Mocking Blow that will only trigger if you have higher life. Um, Usually, you can activate Lyath's ability to get around this. So, you if you attack with Mocking Blow, you only have the higher. You only get you only get booed if you have higher life total. But so long as you've been booed this turn, you get +4. So you can activate Lyath on your turn to get booed and get the might. It's obviously far less efficient, but um, it is a play that you can make for the cards that specifically care about being booed.
Yeah, I think if you are doing this, I think you are definitely losing because
Yeah,
you what you just explained was a 2 cost 5 power Mega Might. So it's like two card 6, and
that's
if you just
fine.
if you just do that, but then on block you are all of your cards are halved and you don't get the +1 block value, means that you're gonna be usually under rate on that turn.
Yeah, yeah. You need some other way to spend the cards, like or a suspense or arsenaling. So it's an option, but it's not where you want to be with the hero.
Yeah, I guess one thing would be that don't lose to it when your opponent attacks you for 1 with Mocking Blow and they look really sad with a card in their hand.
Yeah,
If you block for 1, you will take 4 damage and lose the game sometimes, so don't do that.
yeah, yeah. Just be aware that they can activate this as like a quote unquote combat trick, although it's pretty face up.
And one of the most important cards in this deck, or not important, but very powerful, is a card called Cheap Shot. This is a
Mhm.
yellow, I think it's a rare. And what it does is if you've been booed this turn, you can play it as an instant, and it just does 2 damage. And this card will put your opponent in a spot where if your opponent knows about it, they can't go to 2, and it's really tough for your opponent to like not be at 2 because your hero ability boos on command. So it's essentially just a 2 cost, deal 2 at any point in the game, which means that they can't actually like use their whole hand on offense anymore once they're at 2. And if they're blocking, they can't actually block out with their whole hand once they're at 2. So as long as you have one copy in your deck, you kind of put your opponent in this like really tight bind of like being an 18 life hero instead of a 20 life hero. So you get one extra intellect from your opponent, and this card always converts for 2. So cheap shot, play one if you have it in your pool. It's very powerful, and you'll steal games you have no business stealing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, the exact text on it is you deal 2 damage to a hero unless they discard a card. So you can sort of just, if they're super low, you can just wait for them to empty their hand, um, including when they're attacking you, because you can play it as an instant. So it's pretty hard for them to play around this card. Technically, there is counterplay, but it's very hard to do if the game is at all close.
Yeah, very hard to do. And also with the intimidate cards, like I've heard
Yeah.
of people being like, "Oh, bully tactics, intimidate 3, attack like do 3 true damage, sheep shot 2 true damage, 5 you game's over."
that that is kind of awesome and seems very very on theme for for Laya.
Yeah, like Lyeth is definitely not like a regular hero. Like the ways that Lyeth wins are typically like, oh, Lyeth did something dumb. I got attacked for 26, then got cheap shotted. And just like, oh, like wow, that's unfair. Or like, oh, it's like bully tactics for 15. I blocked with 3, like a card in an armor, and it took 11, and then died the next turn or something. Like the way that Lyeth wins game is really gross, and usually if you're not doing that kind of gross stuff, this hero's not that good.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree with that. I think honestly, I think some of that translates to CC as well, at least for my early exploration of this hero. He can block much better in CC. You can build him in ways where he defends very well, but I think you are still trying to set up some amount of these big, kind of splashy, dumb plays at some point in the game.
hmm Um, I think that's about it for Lyath. I think the last little card would be the yellow guardian attack cycle. I don't know what to call these. It's like wrecking ball and like
Short
the
shrift.
yeah short shrift, small problem.
Yeah.
So to sum it up, this is like a yellow 0 cost 3 power attack, 3 block that has the slide of text as if this has greater power than its base, it gets +1. And Lyath halves its base, so it'll be 2 base in Lyath. And if you give it +1 power from the might token that Lyath generates, it'll get +1 again from its static text, so it'll come in for a 0 for 4. And has a crush ability that's sometimes relevant, sometimes not, but yeah, it's like one of them makes you discard a card, one of them destroys an aura they control, or one of them destroys their arsenal if it crushes. But these cards wear pumps really nicely, and they are on rate if you have a might token. So it's it's reasonable. You kind of want every copy you can find in your Goliath decks, and they are a type of disruption that you kind of need for to do your disgusting things later in the game. So they're good. I think the best home is definitely in Lyath. So um, just assume these are Lyath cards, and they'll be good. They also work in Pleiades, but yeah, they're good Lyath cards.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense and kind of again lines up with my experience of the deck in CC. I've been playing these in CC and been quite happy with them, especially short shrift because discarding a card is just always relevant unless they block with their whole hand, and then you're usually pretty happy too. Um, So yeah, I've been pretty impressed with these. It's sort of funny that you brought them up because like in my head these were like supers or majestics or something from the new set, and then you're like, oh, there's this like common cycle. I'm like, common? What do you mean?
The super cycle is actually the tower cards where they have 13 or more power. Yeah, it does basically the same things.
Yeah, it's usually like more powerful. Like it destroys like they discard all of their cards, and it's just an on hit instead of a crush. But it's much more restrictive in terms of being a tower, and it doesn't get the +1 effect. So
Oh,
I think
no, it
they're
also has the
overall.
+1 effect.
Oh, it does have the +1. Okay, okay, but they do require the tower for the on hit rather than the crush. So you need to make them very large.
Yeah, yeah. My just a very short story time is one of the seal pools I got to play Pallades, and I was this was the first one's the world premiere, and they let us play with the Marvel charms that we got to open. And I was playing Pallades with cut a long story short. This is the same yellow guardian cycle that we're talking about, the 0 cost 3 power. If it's higher than its base, it gets +1. And I was able to set up like a 18 damage cut a long story short with all my auras of suspense, and then I got the block with my headpiece to make the confidence token, right? So it's super good. So I made the confidence token, and then I was, I blocked, and I said my turn, and my opponent says no. From Arsenal, Cheater's Charm. I'm gonna take your confidence token, and then I'm just like, what? No, that's not fair. And then I send the cut a long story short for 18, and they just like look at their hand, they tank for a bit, then they just plop down 12 block in front of it. I'm like, oh my god, I spent so much resources just to do this. And they block for 12, take 6, they go to like 5 or something, and I just lost the game from there. It was yeah, that happened, and the next round opponent also had Cheater's Charm and also took my confidence token, and then I just didn't wanna play Pallades anymore for the rest of the day.
Yeah, the discard your whole hand on hit is a lot better when you have a confidence token to prevent them from just throwing their whole hand in front of it.
Yeah, and it only happened because of the what's it called, the promo pack of the full art charms that we got at the world premiere, and like on the first event they just let us all play with it, right? Because it's so cool. But that also means everyone has cheater charm in their deck, and I was like, oh my god, like we don't need this. Like this is too gross for Blades.
Right. Yeah. So perhaps a fun thing to do, but not the most balanced.
Yeah, yeah. It's yeah, it shouldn't happen often. It could happen still, but it's much more rare in a regular sealed pool.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So that's all the heroes, more or less what you need to know for pre-release. I guess kind of final note for anybody heading to pre-release. Someone's looking at their pool, they're trying to figure out which hero they should play. What kind of things should they look for to try and make this decision? Do you have any like quick tips to help somebody kind of like decide which hero they should be on?
I feel like even with 8 packs, just lay out your deck, and if you don't have 30 cards, you don't get to play that hero. This is gonna be true mostly for Lyath, maybe Pallades, even maybe Tough Nut. Um, and I feel like that's the reason why there were so many KOs at the calling, is because you sometimes lay out your pool and you're like, man, I have like 19 good Pallades cards, and I can fill it out and make it like 25 cards. Lyath is even worse. I like once laid out a Lyath pool and be like, I have 12 cards I want to play for Lyath. And then Tough Nut has this other issue of like you have a bunch of cards you want to play for Tough Nut, but then you look at the resource curve and you're like, they're all 3 costs. I don't think I can just play yellows and 3 costs. That's not a winning game plan. So you just need to lay out your deck and then see if it even looks playable or not would be the first thing.
Any other tips, or is that the big one?
I think that's the big one. You kind of do get handcuffed by if your deck looks playable or not.
Mhm.
And like sometimes Pleiades won't have ways to make the confidence token, and then you wouldn't want to play the Pleiades. Lyath is just like a pure you can't play it because there's not enough cards. Um, And then Tough Nut, if you just don't have 6 power yellows, you just don't get to play Tough Nut. So this sealed format does feel a little bit like you get to play the heroes that you open your pool for, and you don't really get to wiggle around that much. And if you want to wiggle around, you kind of just need to buy 8 more packs and try again.
Interesting. So the pools are not super flexible. It sounds like you kind of build. You can maybe build one, maybe two heroes out of a pool that actually look kind of optimal.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes like I would even say like 0 heroes. Like at my calling, I put my decks together and I'm just like I I sat there for 25 minutes during like which hero to choose, and I'm just like, I don't want to pick any hero. I don't know what to do. Like my Tough Nut deck has like 31 cards I want to play, but they're all 3 costs. My KO deck has no way to win the game. My Pallades deck has no way to make the confidence token, and my Lyath deck is just unplayable. I didn't know what to do.
If only you could have played Scurv.
Yeah, yeah, I guess so. Unless there was a secret hero that I can open in my packs. Unlucky.
Yeah. Okay.
I think overall the experience of the gameplays are pretty good. Even if you have like a bad deck, you get to play a reasonable game, and the really good decks are really really powerful, and it kind of just determine is kind of determined by if you open good supers, good majestics, and have like the proper cards for that hero. So like you can have really good majestics for Pallades, but if you don't have any ways to make confidence token, it just kind of falls apart. And same thing with Tough Nut. You can have a bunch of good Tough Nut supers, but if you don't have the yellow sixes, I think your deck's gonna fall apart.
That makes a lot of sense and sounds like a good word of advice for any of our listeners heading to pre-release. All right. Any closing thoughts here before we wrap up on our pre-release primer?
I think my last little thing I want to say will be the Tough Nut Mirror is the most skill intensive matchup I think in this format. It is gonna be either grueling for you because you don't like this kind of gameplay, or you'll love it because you love this kind of gameplay. So yeah, I would recommend trying the Tough Nut Mirror with some people and just experiencing how this feels like. And don't be afraid to IP3 yourself in this matchup. And games will come down to how many toughness tokens you can burn for your opponent. So it will be it was a very interesting experience being like looking at the hand and like or playing out the whole game and then coming to the conclusion, man, I should have IP2 myself twice this game.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. I've seen that even in CC a little bit with toughness tokens, where it's just like, do I what is the play here? Do I send my red 3 for 7? And then you look and you're like, huh, my opponent has 4 toughness tokens. Nah, I'm just gonna play out this pitch of blue and play my blue edge of their seats to put this +3 aura of suspense and pass.
Yeah, it's really crazy where you just like look at some hands and you're just like, oh, I think the best line is to not attack them and force the Tough Nut to try and convert 3 card hands, which they can't do all the time. But the games where you do lose is when they go like you give them a full hand, you don't attack them, and they just come in for like 14, and like they just keep on rolling that. Like that's also possible for Tough Nut. So the good Tough Nut decks are very good.
Interesting. Okay, very cool. All right, that's going to be a wrap for us this week. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope that it helps you out and helps you feel ready for your pre release. Good luck to all of you. I hope that you have a fun event and that you get some fun polls at your event as well. If you want to get in touch with us, you can find us on social media. Jay is at Ueda J, and I'm at Yukili Bender. That's over on Twitter. You can also find me on Blue Sky with the same handle at Yukili Bender. Our Patreon is patreon.com/onthebobble. So if you want to check out the KO guide or any other upcoming content, feel free to check that out as well. Finally, we have an email onthebobble@gmail.com, as well as a Discord for all of our patrons. I realized that despite talking about the Patreon earlier, I forgot to shout out the patrons. My apologies. We really do appreciate you. Been seeing some new names in there with the new sets and the new heroes coming out and the new KO deck list dropping. So, welcome to everybody who's new, and thank you so much to everybody who supports us and gives back to the show. We couldn't be doing what we're doing without you. So thank you so much. That's going to be a wrap for this week. We'll see you all next time.